Huh?
I'm one of those people who grew up having no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Yeah, I'm right now I'm 51 years old and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. So, but there are a couple of things that I like to call my personal north, my compass, that kind of keep me going in a certain direction. And I've always been a very intuitive person. I always say, hey, you know what? If it feels right, if this is something that kind of just intuitively or instinctively feels like it's the right journey for me, I'm following it. And I don't care where it takes me. It just feels like the right thing to do. And in my career, I've tried a couple of times of doing things that didn't feel right just because they made money or it was like, it was a so-called a good job or whatever. And I failed miserably at them. So I don't do well in that kind of environment. So hence I ended up doing a lot of other stuff and which got me to here today. And so Headstrong Performance is basically the name of my company. It's also the name of my book. And the area that I specialize in now is in human behavior. And for a large part, I studied human behavior because I'm really confused about my own. I have a very, very confusing brain, and for many years, I didn't understand my own brain. And so I was like, wow, okay, so many other people, they have like their lives together, and they figure stuff out, and they're phenomenal that way, and that's not me. So I was like, wow, I need to figure this guy out because otherwise I'm going to be homeless or I'm going to be, I have no idea what I'm going to be, but it's not going to be a good. And so I ended up studying neuroscience really with that intent to figure myself out. But at the same time, I actually started to understand a lot of behaviors of other people. And the area where I ended up specializing is in behavior change. Because at the end of the day, that's a very important aspect of everything that we do. What is that formula? How do we change behavior, right? And the reason why I became so passionate about that is because, like many of you guys, I dabbled in trying to be an athlete, but where I actually excelled was as a coach. And I started off many years ago in the fitness industry and ended up growing into training athletes. And the funny thing is athletes are the easiest people to train, right? So I actually kind of made my life easier because athletes are those kind of people. You tell them what to do and they do it. You know who the hard ones are to train? Everybody else, right? That other 99% of the population, because they're not the ones who have that genetic capacity to perform at their absolute best and to drive themselves. They need a lot of help. And in 2007, I opened, here in Singapore, I opened a gym called the Speed Institute. Still exists. It's back then it was Southeast Asia's largest sports training facility. And the facility was designed to help kids move and behave like athletes. And I failed miserably at it. By that time, I was very good in biomechanics. My undergraduate degree is actually in clinical nutrition, but I studied up, when I opened the gym, I studied up in terms of biomechanics, and so I did a lot of the biomechanical physical stuff, and I pretty much figured out how to train athletes for athletic performance. I helped a lot of endurance athletes get on the podium. I understand exercise physiology, biomechanics, strength conditioning, all of those kind of things was kind of easy to learn. But there was one aspect where I wasn't strong, and something that maybe many of us who come from that sports field also struggle with, and that's really understand is, here's a little graphic of a carrot. You guys can all recognize the carrot, right? So when the brain sees a carrot, it doesn't see a carrot. It actually has a whole bunch of neurons in the brain. It's all over the brain. And when it sees a carrot, various different neurons in different parts of the brain fire at the same time. That's known as Hebb's rule. What fires together, wires together. And every time your brain sees a carrot, those same neurons fire up. It is so uncanny that if I do this movement, The neurons in my prefrontal cortex send signals down into my spine, into my arm, into my leg, to be able to do this without dropping it. You know what the cool thing is? While you're watching that, those exact same neurons are firing as well. Even though you're sitting on your ass and you're not doing anything. It's kind of cool, right? So I actually have the ability to fire your neurons, and all you need to do is just sit and watch. It's kind of a cool idea, right? Okay? Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Now, why is that relevant? Because every time you see a carrot, those same neurons fire. And after a while, your brain doesn't have to see the whole carrot to understand it's looking at a carrot. That's why you can look at sliced carrot and go, that's a carrot. Yeah. So another example. Do you guys recognize what this is? Please don't say no, all right? Okay, so here it comes. This, guys, is known as neural mapping. I'm gonna trick your brain, yeah? This one you recognize, the next one, no way you're gonna recognize it. What's that? It's the Nike logo with a circle in front of it, you then say, right? Yes, exactly. Do you recognize the Nike logo? Does your brain go, whoa, what just happened? No, right? It's kind of like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. How about if I do this one? Do you still recognize the Nike logo? You go, yeah. That's because there's neural mapping. The interesting thing here, guys, is that your brain only needs to see 10% of something that it's kind of comfortable with and it's used to seeing. And then it uses the other 90%. It uses its own imagination to fill the gaps and to say, ta-da, I still see a Nike logo. So what that means is that everything you see today, including moi, right, is 10% reality and 90% imagination. Your life, your realities, your beliefs are based on 10% reality, 90% imagination. Because you use your imagination to close the gaps and to connect the dots. Now, that's fantastic, because the reason for that, the reason why we do that is because could you imagine having to take all 100% of everything in at any given moment in time? Your brain is bombarded with thousands and thousands of stimuli every second. And if you had to take everything in and consciously be aware of what you're looking at, you'd go insane. And so our brains have this capacity to filter things out. And it just looks at 10%, go, I got it. That's a carrot. Or it's a Nike logo. I'm good. Now, there are a lot of advantages in that. There are also some disadvantages. Who could think of a couple of disadvantages where this could apply within Nike? Well, that's a lot. Well, we just heard diversity, how diversity is a strength. It is an absolute strength, but only if we're consciously aware of this. Because with diversity, for example, also means that we also have biases. Because our imagination is fueled by biases. And if I hear 10% of what somebody is saying and say, I got it, I know what he's talking about, I might not know the whole picture. And with diversity, comes great awareness that we can't be looking at our people, at our world, through our own filters. We have to be consciously aware that we have to remove those filters and to always question ourselves, am I seeing the full picture? Or am I seeing 90% of my imagination? And that's going to be an important thing for you guys moving forward as a team, especially if you guys don't know each other yet, right? But connecting with each other is being aware that we all have these biases, and our realities, our beliefs about ourselves is driven by 90% of our imagination of how we think the world really works. Kind of an interesting thought, isn't it? Yeah? Okay, so, have you guys ever heard of the term VUCA? All right. This is why neural mapping is so important. VUCA is an old military term. Before I actually got into the fitness industry, I was in the military. I was in the military for 10 years. I was in naval intelligence. I'm Dutch by origin, and so I was in the Dutch military. And in the military, there was this term. It's called VUCA. And VUCA is, interestingly, now being used in the corporate world. And VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, right? Basically, that means disruption. Any form of disruption, you name it. And the truth is if you look at the business world today, it is full of disruptors. Yeah, think about Uber. Would Uber be seen as a disruptor for the taxi industry? Pretty much, right? Airbnb for the hotel industry. Yeah. What brand is a disruptor for the sports industry? Yes! Nike! Nike is the disruptor. What we just saw, that connecting people using technology is a fantastic way to describe how we can also be disruptors. But when we disrupt the industry, we create VUCA. Everybody else around the world goes, ah, VUCA. Yeah? And what we know about VUCA is that we have to have, as organizations, we have to have a level of adaptability. We have to be adaptable, we have to be innovative, we have to learn how to think different, believe different, right? Just being able to utilize our senses in a way that we've never been able to do before so that we can continue disrupting these markets, because that's essential. Yeah? So VUCA is not just about dealing with disruptors, but it's also how can I be a disruptor? Yeah? And this business world out here is extremely volatile today. It's extremely uncertain, extremely complex. And wow, this is so inspiring. Yeah? So we need to produce results. That's a very important part of leadership. The second one, which drives results, is behavior. And our behavior has to be consistent. We have to be consistent in those behaviors that deliver results. Every single day, every single moment of the day. Being a top-level athlete, athletes, a really good example, my daughter is, actually she's a Division I athlete, and when she's in high school, there are other kids who play the same sport as she does, and she goes, well, why did you make it and we didn't make it? And she came home to me one day, she said, why is that? Why, what was in me that made it? And they didn't. And I said, it's really simple. I said, you're an athlete. They play a sport. There's a difference, right? An athlete is a person who's hungry and who's an athlete 24 hours a day. They live it, they breathe it, they take it with them to the bathroom. They don't just play a sport an hour a day and then they think they're an athlete. That's a completely different level. And the same counts with regards to producing the results and showing those behaviors. This is really an athletic attempt for Nike, because You want to be thinking about that goal, right? Are you a triple-double machine? Are you that person who wakes up every single day and who lives this? He goes, yeah, man, I have this for breakfast. I triple-double my breakfast. I do everything triple-double. Because that's who I am, right? Because guys, being in the NBA is not enough for these people. Being part of that NBA is like, man, I made it into the NBA. What's next? How can I excel next? Dude, I'm going to triple the double out of this season. Fantastic. The question is, can we do the same? Can we wake up every single day being that triple-double machine? Because that's what it's going to take, right? It really is going to take that. This is not the Nike of yesterday anymore. Nike of yesterday, you could show up to work. But if you want this, you want to be that triple-double machine, you want to be known, you want to be the market leader who isn't just leading the market from a revenue standpoint, but the kind of market leader when you say, dude, I work for Nike, and everyone's go, oh, right? Like, whoa, that's phenomenal. That's a different mindset. And in order for you to be able to reach that mindset, you're going to have to remove a lot of your own biases that you might have today. And so there's going to be a journey for you. And when I end this talk in about half an hour's time, hopefully you're going to have a couple of things that you know that you can work on to actually start building that within yourself, all right? But that triple-double machine really has to do with what are the results that you're producing and what are those behaviors on a daily basis. And that's a good thing to think about. And it's probably a really good exercise over these next 2 days. You probably want to spend some time together saying, what are those behaviors? How do I wake up every single day eating triple doubles for breakfast? What's required? Yeah? And put some of those behaviors on paper and set some goals for yourself to say, this is what we're going to do. Guys, we do this with athletes all the time. What are those behaviors that you really need to be that triple-double machine? Yeah? And what it really boils down to, guys, and this is the same with that Singapore Football League soccer player, is the area where he was struggling was with mindset. Because we can have the genetics, guys. We can have the diversity. We can have all of that potential together. But if we don't have the mindset, we're screwed. Just like that soccer player from Singapore Football League. And there's some really great research from Carol Dweck, who is a Stanford University professor. I summarize it here, it's a little bit easier. But basically, there are two types of mindsets. There's a fixed mindset and there's a growth mindset. Growth mindseted people are people who wake up every single day taking on challenges, wanting to learn from them. They love anything that has to do with a challenge. To them, there is no such thing as bad news and failure. They're only learning opportunities. And they push themselves every day to become that little bit better. They dare to make mistakes. Because my theory is that if we're not making mistakes, guys, we're not trying hard enough. Yeah, and in the leadership work that I used to do, whenever I had one of my staff members who royally screwed up because they were challenging themselves, that was a high five. Love it. Yeah, as long as you learn from it. Keep learning, keep growing. Yeah, that's really what a growth mindset is. Yeah, they embrace challenges, they push through setbacks, they look at long-term growth, right? 2020, for example, right? They look for feedback, they're inspired by other people's success, and their motivations are intrinsic, not extrinsic. What is the difference? Really simple. If I am extrinsically motivated, it's because I want to stand up here because I want you guys to love me, right? If I'm intrinsically motivated, I'm standing up in here because I want to love you guys, because that's what I love to do. It's because of the feeling inside in your heart that says, you know what, this is awesome. I love doing this. I don't care if there are 2 people in the audience or 2,000, doesn't matter to me. Yeah, that's what mindset really drives. And at the end of the day, to be successful at that triple-double, double the amount of innovation, double the amount of digital offerings, double the amount of what else? Do we all know the triple-double? Speed to the consumer. I'm going to add a 4th one. Double the amount of revenue, because that would be nice, right? Quadruple-double, all right? So, but at the end of the day, it's going to be the mindset of this organization, collective mindset of the organization, whether or not we're going to be able to drive that. Now, but you know, it's a lot of very simple things. Your diet, all of that kind of stuff affects how your brain functions. Think about that, guys. The breakfast that you put in your stomach this morning goes straight to your brain. And if you had Dunkin' Donuts for breakfast, your brain is screwed. It's unfortunately, but that's the way it is. And if we want to be the triple-double machines, if that is really what we want, then we've got to wake up every single morning understanding that. How do I raise my capacity to be that triple-double machine? Because, guys, I can say it all day long and not believe it or not do it. That's totally cool. But if you really want to achieve this goal of 2020, don't just represent the brand. Be the brand.
Huh?